Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's installment of the Bama Factor with Alex Taylor. I am your host, as always, Alex Taylor, and we got a lot to unpack this episode. A lot that happened, obviously, this past week in college football. Saw some upsets, saw some potential upsets that did not come to fruition. But safe to say, the football season is in full swing and it is underway, and we got a lot to talk about. So just in this episode, going to be talking a little bit about, Alabama USF recap, a little bit about some injury updates. We're going to be previewing the Wisconsin game. This week's feature of the AT poll, week number 3 of the AT poll, And we're going to be talking about some impact players and also some news around college football as well. But guys, as you see scrolling across the bottom, all of my socials are on there. Y'all be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and of course YouTube. You can also catch the Bama Factor with Alex Taylor each Thursday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, whatever your listening platform is and whatever your preference is. Catch me on those each and every Thursday throughout the football season and the basketball season this year to keep you up to date with all things Alabama football and basketball. So first and foremost, we're just going to talk a little bit about some upsets this past weekend. We saw NIU go into South Bend, Indiana, beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish on a field goal. Not only kicking the game-winning field goal, but blocking the potential game-winning field goal from the Irish. Absolutely incredible. Then we see Cal go into Auburn and upset Auburn. And a lot of Auburn fans calling for Peyton Thorne's job now. Very interesting to see how that will progress over the next few weeks with the QB situation on the Plains. But let's get to our main focus here, and we are going to be discussing Alabama USF recap. And this is a game that caused me a lot of strife, a lot of stress. At least until the fourth quarter. Just with the way that we played, the mistakes, the penalties. I'm glad that I do this podcast on Wednesday. And, it's so far away from, the Saturday game. Because it gives me time to not only compose what I want to say on the podcast and what I want to say on this show, but gives me time to calm down. And, that's, I think, one of the most important things, especially when you have a platform like this, you don't want to go scorched earth on your podcast at all. You want to keep it professional. And I am going to do a little bit of a, speaking my mind tonight, but I'll try to do it in a very professional way, if that's okay with you guys. But as far as this, Alabama really for 3 quarters was in a dogfight with USF, and hats off to them. Heck of a ball club. Alex Goshen is just a heck of a ball coach, and he's not going to be at USF for long. Some top FBS school is going to pick him up in one of the Power 4 conferences. The game plan he had, the defensive game plan with all the stunts and the pressures that he had were absolutely incredible. Had a good offensive game plan. But, in the end, thankfully the talent took over, and Alabama was able to come out with a win. Just a couple stats for all you I guess you could say statisticians out there. Jalen Milroe, 16 of 26 for 194 yards, 2 touchdowns. Could have seen a little more crisper performance out of Jalen Milroe for sure. Really didn't see kind of what we did in the first game. He looked a little bit under pressure a lot, obviously, from the offensive line. He wasn't really able to get going until the fourth quarter, but still came out on top. Player of the game and this week's winner of the Bama Factor Award on offense, Jam Miller, really came alive. 15 carries, 140 yards, and a touchdown. His long of 56. Justice Haynes also 13 carries, 46 yards, and a touchdown. Just really getting going there as well. And still in the receiving core, we see Jeremy Bernard make a huge impact in the receiving core. 4 catches, 53 yards. Kobe Prentice, 2 for 34 and a touchdown. And Ryan Williams still continuing to impress early in his career. 17 years old, and like Joe Tessitore said, 17 years old and on the top of the world. 4 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Now going over to the defensive side, again, Jihad Campbell everywhere on the field, 11 total tackles, 8 solo, 1.5 tackles for a loss. But also right behind him, Justin Jefferson, who unfortunately will be out the first half of this Saturday's game due to a targeting call in the fourth quarter that was called against him. But he did have a sack and a tackle for a loss, 8 solo tackles to go along with 10 total tackles. Tim Keenan, who got your SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, as voted on by the media. 9 tackles, 2.5 for a loss, and 1.5 sacks. Just really a game wrecker. Tim Keenan's a guy, who we've really kept an eye on here ever since he came out of high school, and knew that, he was really going to be a stud one day. But, he waited patiently, dropped some weight, got stronger, and, now he's a force on the line for the Crimson Tide, of course. Secondary, for the most part, played pretty well, in my opinion. But, we do have some things to clean up, and we do need to address the elephant in the room. And it is our offensive line, and really more specifically, our right tackle position. And, I'm never going to come on a show and, publicly bash, a student athlete for the Crimson Tide. They're there, but I'm also not going to make any excuses for him as well. He does have to improve, and Wilkin Formby was very highly recruited out of high school, but he's still young, and you try to use these opportunities as learning opportunities, as teaching opportunities as a coach, and we had to shuffle the offensive line. It was kind of a makeshift offensive line. You throw Tyler Booker out to left tackle in place of Caden Proctor, who was still injured. Then you put, Vandermark in at the guard position. And then, you have Wilkin Formby at the right tackle position. But Formby was kind of the main cause of our offensive line issues on Saturday. 4 holding penalties against him, a few false starts, just constantly getting beat, kind of having his feet glued to the ground, really just getting beat on that quick first step by some edge guys for South Florida. But I think when you look at the grand scheme of things, every player is going to have some adversity in their life. Every player is going to have some adversity in their career. If you look back, it really any player that really became great at Alabama, they had some adversity. They had those games where they didn't perform well. Everybody has an off night, and it doesn't really matter who it's against either. Because all these guys at the end of the day are college level athletes, and they're there for a reason. So when you look at things like that, you just really have to be careful, because you don't ever want to go publicly bash someone, because you wouldn't feel appreciated at all, and you wouldn't feel encouraged if that was you, and all of a sudden your whole fan base and your so-called supporters are there really making it worse. The kid's already down, and you can also kind of equate that to Peyton Thorne at Auburn. All these people asking for their money back, that they bet on, him to throw, for touchdowns or over yards, them asking him personally for their money back, that he has to pay them, and saying that if he starts this Saturday, they're absolutely just going to boo him off the field, and they're going to boo Hugh Freeze off the field. Those are not true friends. Those are not true fans of your team or of you if they're going to do that to you. But like I said, I'm not going to make excuses either. He struggled. I think he needed to be taken out sooner, because when you have a guy struggling like that, you need to address it. I think DeBoer and the staff were just trying to get him some key development reps, but I think it goes to a point of where you have to get him out of the game. And sure enough, Elijah Pritchett, who was a little injured, of course, came to Coach and said, Coach, I'm ready, put me in. And, we obviously see in the fourth quarter what happened. The Tide reeled off 28 points in the fourth quarter, and on those 3 consecutive drives when Pritchett was in, we didn't have any penalties, and scored on all 3 drives. So Pritchett was the X factor, in my opinion, in the fourth quarter that really just turned our offense around for really the whole game. So it was obviously very interesting to see it is. But, we've got some communication problems on Saturday. Jalen's got to do a better job at recognizing pre-snap blitzes. He's got to identify those. He's got to get rid of the football. He's trying to make too much happen. He's got to just learn to throw the football away. He's got to be smart with it. He's got to sense that pressure. He's got to have a sixth sense. And, it all comes with time. It does. It all comes with time. But other than that, I was proud of how we finished the game. I was proud of, we hit some adversity. We hit a wall. And, sure enough, we bounced back. And, we had a strong fourth quarter. And, came out on top 42-16. Keeping with the offensive line, we're going to talk a little bit about a key player on the offensive line, Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor, obviously, as we talked about last week, the whole transfer saga of him, transferring from Bama to Iowa, where he was from, and then shortly after that realizing, hey, I kind of jumped the gun here, and, I kind of made the wrong choice here, so obviously ended up transferring back to Alabama in the spring portal window. Really did not get any time in the spring with the Crimson Tide, had to work his way back to the ones, and he has. Really wanted to play last week, but held him out again. But this week he seems to be progressing, seems to be really kind of turned the corner as what we've heard from practice, saying that his injury is good and that he will be back on the line this Saturday when they take on Wisconsin. So that's huge news because then now I think you've got your starting offensive line. I think you've got Proctor, Tyler Booker, Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts, and Elijah Pritchett. I think that's the 5 that need to be put out there. I think that's what you need to see. And, these other guys can learn from this. But, still this early in the season, you still got competitions really progressing at every position too. So, this is where guys start to emerge and start to solidify their starting positions. But I think the offensive line, that's something that I want to see improve this Saturday. And, it's going to be in a hostile environment. It's going to be against, a higher tier opponent than the 2 we've just played. So we have to make sure that we're on top of the game for sure. And now kind of going into that, I kind of talk about the first road test. And the reason that I like this so much this year is because we play a Power 4 school on the road early in the season in the year of a new head coach and a new coaching staff. This is going to be a good test for us. We have a young secondary. We have a new offense. We have a new coaching staff. We have a whole new philosophy. The same standard, but a new philosophy, a new coaching style. And you want to see where your team stands. And also with that, this is a really good catapult game into what we're about to play in the conference. We have the off week after this week, and then, we go straight into Georgia. And then we play Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU. We go to Oklahoma. Auburn's at the end of the year. So you go into your gauntlet at this point. So you want to have this early road test of where you can really prove something. And, the Crimson Tide players have been saying all week in practice, we want to empty the stadium. We want to just take the air out of the stadium, take the energy out of the stadium. I mean, that's what you have to have as your attitude when you enter a road environment like you're going to enter. I mean, Wisconsin, I personally haven't watched a ton of Wisconsin football, over the years, but I've definitely watched enough to know that it's a hostile environment. It's going to be an early game. It's going to be a game where, their fans are amped up and, you've got Alabama coming to town and, you want to perform. You want to beat Alabama. You want to beat the standard. So, they're going to be amped up. They have a good quarterback. They got 2 good tailbacks. Their first 2 games I don't think are really representative of what and who they are. Luke Fickell's a good head coach. He led Cincinnati to the playoff 3 years ago to get beat by Alabama. So he does have experience playing Alabama. But when you go on the road, it's just so important just to keep your composure. It's going to be loud. It's going to be hostile. Especially, it's a long trip. It's from Tuscaloosa all the way to Wisconsin. So, you're going from the south to the north. Your altitude is changing. Your temperature, your climate's changing. The type of people you're around is changing. So, it's just important. But again, I like this. I like that we get this road test early because we've got to go to Tennessee this year, to LSU, to Oklahoma. So big road games this year, and you've got to start somewhere. So this prepares you for it. So I think the guys are going to be calm and collected. Practice has been good this week. I hope that we just go in and we take care of what we need to take care of. And I think where that all starts, going into our next segment, I think where that all starts is on the offensive side of the ball. And none other than our stud true freshman, Ryan Williams. I followed this kid out of high school when he really got on Alabama's radar, and when he was a sophomore. And the fact that he committed to Alabama when he was a sophomore, and just watching this kid, watching him in the state title game that previous year, and then watching him, in the state title game last year, and just keeping up with him last year as well, saying that he was going to reclassify to 2024, skip his senior year, and just the whole saga of him, obviously committing to Alabama, then Saban retires. He decommits a day after. Kalen DeBoer and the staff do such a great job of just reeling him back in, really re-recruiting him, reselling him on the standard at Alabama, and didn't join us till the summer, so wasn't there in the spring, and now all of a sudden is leading the team in receiving yards, leading the team in receiving touchdowns, and the kid's 17 years old. The kid is the youngest football player in all of college, and that's amazing to me. But when you look at his skill set and just how he's, like, his frame, his size, his speed, his agility, his route running, he reminds you so much of Devontae Smith. And I know people say, oh, you can't compare him to Devontae, or you can't do this. But you can. If you look at their film side by side and you really look at how they're built, their frame, all their mannerisms even, they're almost creepily, like, it's almost creepy how similar they are. And I just think this kid's going to be so special. And I think, again, it starts with him. We've needed that wide receiver one that we really haven't had since Jamison Williams. And we saw the type of weekend that he had in the NFL with the Lions. And, we had that wide receiver one in Jerry Jeudy. You had it in Calvin Ridley. You had it in Amari Cooper. You had it in Julio Jones. And Julio Jones was that guy for Coach Saban. Can Ryan Williams be that guy for Coach DeBoer? And I think the answer is yes. Not to say that we don't have other talented wide receivers. I want to see Kendrick Law get more involved. I want to see Jeremy start to get involved. He got involved last week. Kobe Prentice, welcome to the party. I want to see Emmanuel Henderson get involved. I want to see Caleb Odom, another 5-star true freshman. I want to see him get involved. And we just have to, I think with the receiving core and the talent we have, and not only that, but the coaching of Jamarcus Shepard, that guy makes me want to run through a brick wall. If you just listen to him and you listen to his passion, his intensity, the motivation that he puts in these guys, it just makes you want to play that much harder. If I were a player, it would make me want to play that much harder for him. But overall, Ryan Williams has just been so impressive. Second in the SEC in receiving yards already, 2 weeks in. Obviously, almost 34 yards a catch. Insane. And 3 touchdowns. He and Jeremiah Smith both are just absolutely just really impressing. And really, they're really becoming all that they were hyped up to be. So, these two guys are going to dominate football for, the next 3 to 4 years. So now kind of leading into our last segment, as we preview the Wisconsin game. And we also just kind of look at some keys to the game as well. Obviously, that's something that I'm going to be adding each week, just our overall keys to the game, our things that you need to watch out for. But also, we're going to do week 3 of the AT poll as well. I've got a lot of positive feedback on this, guys. And again, I can't thank you guys enough for just your comments, your feedback. I've gotten a lot of I got a lot of currently a lot of DMs about the AT poll and saying that, hey, it was a good job. I look forward to it every week. Obviously, I've had some people who have disagreed with me, but I try to just take into account, how the team performed. What did they look like, quality of opponent, anything like that. So we're going to jump right into this week's edition of the AT poll, top 25. So obviously, your top four did not change much for me, except for I did vault Texas over Ohio State. Texas had an impressive win in Ann Arbor this past weekend, really taking the Wolverines to the woodshed. Michigan just looked lost out there, and I think they're going to look lost this whole season. And Texas was just too good. Offense was too good. The defense was just stifling. So, hats off Texas. Georgia, like I said, they take care of business against Tennessee Tech. Ohio State, obviously taking care of business as well. Keeping Alabama at 4. I even had some Alabama fans ask me, we should be lower. We're staying at 4. We still won. Yeah, we struggled, but, we still won. And so, I don't see a reason to drop us. Vaulting Tennessee up to 5. Tennessee looked very, very crisp against NC State. Josh Heupel's really got the offense going. Obviously, Nico had a good game. Dylan Sampson had a good game as well. The defense really came to play as well. So, awesome job there. Missouri, vaulting them to number 6. Really dominant showing. They get ready for a matchup with number 22 Boston College this weekend, number 22 in the AT poll. Ole Miss at number 7, again taking care of business as always this week. Miami, again, in the top 10 this week at the AT poll. Really still dominant performance. Penn State taking care of what they need to take care of. A little scare against Bowling Green, though. You've got to give it to the Green. They really went into Happy Valley and gave them a scare. USC obviously taking care of business a week after handing it to LSU. Oregon kind of bouncing back from a week ago. But, a tough Boise State team they played. And really that game could have gone really either way if you really wanted to really get into it. Oregon could be in some trouble down the road. They do have to play Ohio State. Oklahoma State going into overtime against Arkansas. Good win against Arkansas. Arkansas up by 14 at one point, blowing that lead in the fourth quarter in overtime. Kansas State getting back to their winning ways as well, but tested a little bit against Tulane. Utah obviously continuing to win as well. Louisville, I think a team that can make a lot of noise this year. Dropped the Wolverines to 16. Obviously not really worth dropping them out of the top 25. Now, if they go on and they lose the next couple of weeks, then, I can see them dropping. But we're just going to drop them to there for right now. LSU, also just kind of like Alabama, not the most dominant showing against a lesser opponent, and this was an FCS school. But got the job done at the end of the day in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma, taking care of business against Houston. Arizona still looking very strong. Could be some contenders as well. Iowa State getting a big win over Iowa going in to Connect Stadium and kind of stunning Iowa on a field goal. Clemson absolutely demolishing Appalachian State after getting embarrassed by Georgia. So Clemson kind of starting their home stretch off on the right foot. Boston College still kind of on top of the world after upsetting Florida State. And they go to Missouri this weekend. That is a game to watch, I think. Nebraska, huge win over Primetime and Colorado. Dylan Raiola. Fantastic showing from him. NIU, like I said, with the upset over the Irish. And, of course, right below them, the team they upset, Notre Dame. So that's your AT poll week 3 top 25. Let me know if you agree with it. If you don't, who's too high, who's too low, and who should potentially get in next week, who could receive some votes as well, and who you think has the opportunity to fall out, who has the opportunity to jump in. Let us know that for sure. And also, if you look right there to the right side of the AT poll, you can see this week's game win poster, obviously designed by me, and obviously put out on the Instagram page by me as well. 42-16, obviously your final score on the night they dedicated the field to Coach Saban. Coach Saban, again, we thank you so much for everything that you did for the university. 6 national championships, 9 SEC championships, multiple All-Americans, multiple draft picks, and just a lifetime of memories that we as fans will never, ever forget. And again, we thank you. But the Bull Wranglers is this week's win slogan. As you can see, Jalen Milroe, Jam Miller, and Tim Keenan on there, some players of the week, and the Bama Factor Award as well. The Bama Factor Award on offense went to Jam Miller, as I said earlier, with his performance, and on defense it went to Tim Keenan III. So now we're just going to jump in to our Wisconsin preview. This will be very short as well, but just when you look at Wisconsin, Wisconsin does come in 2-0. But kind of like I said, their first 2 games, they've been kind of odd. The first game of the season they play West Michigan, 28-14, not the most impressive showing. And then you think the next week they're playing South Dakota, and an FCS school. So you think, they should really hand it to these guys. If I'm not mistaken, they were favored by 44.5, final score 27-13. So Wisconsin not off to really the strongest start, even though they are 2-0. But you don't ever underestimate anybody. They're fixing to play Alabama, so I fully expect that we're going to get Wisconsin's absolute best game of the year. Alabama's coming to town. They got it circled. They want to upset Alabama. It's a top 10 team. And they want to upset us. They're not in the top 25. They want to have the potential to upset a top 10 team, a top 5 team. Right now, Alabama's favored by 16. That line could shift. Total over-under is 50.5. I think I would potentially take the under in this game. And the money line, plus 550 for Wisconsin. So, a lot of the money obviously coming in on Alabama. Bama players, I know they have to see that, obviously. But I think when you look at the magnitude of this game early in the season, this is a test. This is a test for a young secondary at Alabama. This is a test for Jalen Milroe and this offensive line, and Caden Proctor getting his first action of the year. This is a test for the new coaching staff. Really going on the road for the first time, and then getting ready for an off week, trying not to look too forward to the off week, and also not look ahead to Georgia as well. That's very important this week, and we have to make sure that we keep our head on straight for that as well. But outside of that, comparing the two, Tyler Van Dyke does have more passing yards, but has thrown the ball a lot more than Jalen has, literally almost 2 times as more. Jam Miller does have some more yards than their leading rusher. And Ryan Williams has more receiving yards as well. So stat-wise, pretty even. But Wisconsin is definitely no slouch. They're always kind of contenders in the Big Ten. And like I said, hostile environment. Camp Randall Stadium is going to be jumping around. Pun intended there. But, 65 degrees. It's going to be in the morning, early kickoff. But ultimately, I think Alabama can roll into this game. I think Alabama, if they control us, if they clean up the penalties, if they clean up the communication issues, and they clean up the offensive line, I think the defense is there. I think the defense has an opportunity to really do something special this Saturday, create some turnovers. I know that Kane Womack was not really pleased with the defense not creating any turnovers this past Saturday, so that's something that they're going to really hark on this Saturday, and I'm excited to see that. So I think Alabama can go in to Wisconsin and get a win. Overall, my score prediction is kind of varied. I can see this being a 35-14 game, 35-21 game, maybe late. But I do see the Tide coming out on top But it all comes down, like I said, cleaning up those penalty issues, cleaning up the communication issues, playing the next play, and getting off field on third down on the defensive side of the ball. We've got to generate pressure more than we did last week. Wisconsin's going to have a good offensive line. They got the big cornbread boys, as I always call them up there in the north. So they just got to go be relentless, and as the players have been saying all week, they want to empty the stadium, and that's what your goal needs to be for sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for this evening. Be sure to catch a new episode of the Bama Factor with Alex Taylor every single Thursday on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and wherever you listen to. We're also on iHeartRadio and Amazon Prime Music. So any of the streaming services that you have, you can catch me on that each and every Thursday, bringing you the latest and up-to-date news for Alabama football and basketball once that season comes around, which we are not too far from. I would also like to take this time to present that we are brought to you and a proud member of the College Huddle. If you want to see more of the College Huddle and more of the members, the largest fan-led podcast community in college sports, you can go to www.thecollegehuddle.com. Click on any of the conferences of the Power 4 conferences, a group of 5, and you will find any and every podcast that is represented. Over 79 podcasts are represented on the College Huddle. We are super proud to be the lone Alabama representative of the College Huddle. Be sure to check out some of the SEC pages. Be sure to check out the overall College Huddle pages, and also be able to check out some cool articles there as well. They aren't just written about their specific teams, but they're written about college football in general. So who knows? Your team could be on an article. Your team could be on a featured video. Also, check them out on YouTube and Facebook as well, and their Instagram page. They are just about on every platform as well. Also, check them out on Twitter. They post pretty regularly as well. Again, the College Huddle, we are proud to be the Alabama representative for the College Huddle. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you again so much. We're continuing to grow. As I said, be sure to follow me on all the socials that have been scrolling there through the whole episode through the bottom. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and be sure to follow me on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Let's get to 500 subscribers before the end of the season. I appreciate you guys. God bless, and roll tide, and have a great college football Saturday.